It is a Locked On crossover, Locked On Nittany Lions and Locked On Buckeyes. I'm your host of Locked On Nittany Lions, Zach Seyko, joined by Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes. Jay, it's good to see you again on the other side.
Yeah, Zach, it's good to be back. Good to be talking Buckeye sports. The basketball season is not going as people thought it would, but I'm just glad to talk ball. I'm glad to be here with you today.
Yeah, and there's another show that does that as well when it comes to college basketball, and that's Locked On College Basketball. Fitting name, everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, you get to hear from big name experts, insiders, players, and coaches. That is Locked On College Basketball. Available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, like both of our shows here, Locked On Nittany Lions and Locked On Buckeyes. Subscribe to both shows if you haven't already. So, Penn State's taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes for Thursday. February 23rd, and that's going to be out in Columbus. It is a 6:30 tip, and it's going to be on Fox Sports 1 for anyone that can't make the game. Jay, are you going to the game?
No, I will not be there. It will probably be for my best interest to not watch this team in person. Now, I'm being sarcastic when I say that. I would love to be there, honestly, because these guys, when they play well together, they're a good basketball team, but it's been a long time since we have seen that version of Buckeye basketball in this season.
Yeah, and that's honestly what I want to start off with first, because Ohio State's a team that I know they've gone through the gauntlet of the Big Ten. They've lost 8 in a row. They're 3-13. They're really, in terms of record, aren't all that much better than Minnesota in conference, but they're 11-16. Kem Palm likes them. The net rankings like them. The RPI likes them. And if you open up ESPN right now, they're giving Ohio State roughly a 70% chance of winning. If they play 100 games, Penn State and Ohio State in Columbus, Ohio State wins 70 of them. That's what they're saying here. Let's bring it down. How about 7 out of 10? Because 100 games is a little rough. But that's what they're saying, is that Ohio State wins 70% of the time. So do you buy into that stat? What ultimately has gone wrong with the Buckeyes here?
For those of you watching on YouTube, you saw my eyes get big when Zach was reading off that number with the Buckeyes winning 70% of the time or the games if these two teams played 100 times. I don't believe that. I don't buy that. Ken Palm and all these other analytics buying into the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
I don't get it. My eyeballs tell me this is a bad basketball team, has no chemistry. They don't have anybody that has like a dog mentality that can take over a game. Defense is poor. So I don't know what my eyeballs are telling me that is not feeding into the computers, but I've watched them play all the games this year. Started off great. I'm not going to say the injuries were the part that messed them up. I think that them having so many freshmen and that needed to play big minutes, that was a problem because Big Ten play is tough. It's tough playing all these schools night in, night out. And I think that was a big problem, was that once they got into the Big Ten schedule and they started to get punched in the mouth, figuratively speaking, not literally, the Buckeyes didn't have an answer.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, at least my takeaway from it is that Zed Key is very important to this group, because if you look back at the beginning of the season, sure, they lost some games. Let's, take a North Carolina, for example, but this was a team that started out 10-3, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was a 10-3 team as they started. And then Zed Key gets hurt in that first Purdue game, and they still take him down to the wire. That was 71-69. And then ever since, even though he's come back and he's played on and off, he hasn't been 100%. So, Jay, put it into perspective for the viewers and the listeners, just how important Zed Key is to this group when he's 100%.
He's huge, man. And you mentioned a 10-3 start and then that Purdue game. And I listened to another Buckeye podcast. Bill Landis covers Ohio State for Rivals. And he made a comment about how that Purdue game, that loss, did something to Ohio State and knocked them back. And it kind of messed up their confidence. If you would have said, if I could predict how the Buckeyes would have played this regular season after the 10-3 start, I would have said they probably would have had a setback or two, maybe 2 or 3 losses in conference play. And honestly, they would have been looking at a bye in the Big Ten Conference Tournament, maybe a double bye, and ultimately being a team that's a force and that can compete for the Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship. That's not the case. Zed Key's injury, shoulder injury, had an ankle injury, tweaked that later in the season. His injury is huge because when they can go inside to him consistently and feed the rock inside, let him do work down on the block, either left block or right block, it opens things up for guys like a Brice Sensabaugh or a Sean McNeil or Tanner Holden off the bench or Roddy Gale Jr. from off the bench. It opens things up for everybody. And I say all that to say this, he's not playing in this game against Penn State. He's out for the season. That's huge. And a team that's struggling to find an identity and somebody that can lean on, not having Zed Key. First, he was hurt, and you could tell he was noticeably hurt because he wasn't getting any lift. He had no confidence. The open threes he was taking early in the season, he stopped taking those. His injury is to his shooting shoulder. That really hurt this team. That's not the only problem, but that's one of the problems that Ohio State has right now, and they'll be out Zed Key for the rest of the season.
What would you say about an Ohio State team that I guess at this point, because you would probably agree that this season's a lost cause. There's no backdoor way into the NCAA tournament, even the NIT, the National Invitational, unless they were to make a series. The only way is to get that automatic bid by winning the Big Ten tournament, and that's most likely not even for Penn State. Both our teams are not going to win the Big Ten tournament. But is there something to be said about this Buckeye team that can play a little more loose, relaxed, say, they got nothing to lose, and they're at home? And Penn State's got everything to lose, because if they go 5-0 down this stretch, they started with Minnesota, they're here at Ohio State, then they got Rutgers, Northwestern, and finish with Maryland. Is it fair to say about this Buckeye team that they could just try to shake things up and just try to jar Penn State a little bit and play spoiler in this case?
Yeah, they can. And I noticed something against Purdue. Ohio State played Purdue this past Sunday afternoon. And Chris Holtmann started to play a little full court press, a little more pressure, getting the ball up court. It wasn't an answer. Purdue almost beat them by 30. But it was something that I wish Chris Holtmann would have tried 5 games ago. And it's not a number to exaggerate. No, literally 5 games ago, maybe even 10 games ago. Change things up. I think Chris Holtmann realizes his guys aren't good on defense. And so when you're not good on defense, you don't try to do the whole full court press thing all the time, because it may lead to easier baskets for the opposition. But you got to change something up on both ends of the court. But yeah, Brice Sensabaugh. I wonder if Tanner Holden, a transfer from Wright State, ultimately gets some more run in this game, and he somehow comes out with 20 points. Now, if that happens, that's a question mark for Chris Holtmann. He's going to have to answer in the postgame. It's like, why have you not played him more? Like, these are real, legitimate things people are going to ask in the postgame, because Ohio State media that cover the basketball team, they're as confused as you are, confused as I am, because with all the talent on this team, there's no reason this team should only have 3 wins in conference play.
Yeah, even though the rankings might be a little more friendly to Ohio State, I do think they're better than what the record indicates, because I looked at some other Penn State peers, Penn State friends that like the men's basketball team, think that this was a fun season, this was an entertaining season, something to talk about, and I'm not overly sold that Penn State goes into Columbus and wins this game, because Ohio State does have some talented players. Penn State, they've shown against teams when there is that star player like a Brice Sensabaugh that they just don't do as well, and they're just not good on the road. They have 2 wins on the road. Penn State's just not a road team. They're much better at home, and this is again an Ohio State team that has talent but just hasn't put it together. So, Jay, what would you like to know about the Nittany Lions? And we'll flip it over here, and you can ask me some of the questions about this Nittany Lion team.
What would you say is a story of Penn State basketball this season?
Jalen Pickett, first and foremost. I've heard that there's going to be a camera crew in town. I forget the network, but they're going to do a feature on Jalen Pickett for Sunday's game against Rutgers, because that's really what it's been about. This conversation that Jalen Pickett is, and I'd personally put him in the All-America conversation. Okay. I don't think that he's a first or second teamer, because that's top 10 basketball players, and there are 10 other guys that are definitely better than him. But I'd like to think that he's one of the top 6 guards in the country right now. Not a lot of other players are scoring 40 against Illinois, who is a tournament bound team.
Right.
And then Minnesota. Okay. I get that. You're scoring 41 against Illinois and then 32 against Minnesota. But then to do that back to back when Minnesota game plans for you, they see that and they're like, all right, we got to focus our energy around Jalen Pickett. And then he still goes out and willingly puts up 32. On top of that, it's extremely efficient. He's not shooting 50 times a game. Now I know it's an exaggeration, but it's not like, okay, he's going to the free throw line and he's getting about 10 to 15 attempts at the free throw line, and then he's shooting maybe 6 of 15 from the field. He's shooting 50%. He's very efficient with his shots. He's making his shots. So not only is he doing a little and then getting close to a triple double on top of that as well. So the story of the season is that this Penn State team can shoot the basketball very well. They're back and forth. They're red hot. They're ice cold. But Jalen Pickett has really emerged as this guy who's really pulled this team, pushed this team forward better than if they'd be significantly worse if they didn't have him on the floor and he almost plays 40 minutes a night. He gets about 60 seconds of rest.
Michael Shrewsbury is making sure to get all he can out of this young man. Michael Shrewsbury in year 2. What did you see? I see they have a better record, but have you seen? I know you see the improvement in the win-loss record, but have you seen improvement in all the areas you were expecting to?
I don't want Micah Shrewsbury to go anywhere.
Gotcha.
I don't want another coach. I don't want to go looking for another coach because he's somebody that has shown that I like what I think it's John Rothstein who coined this phrase that Micah Shrewsbury more plays than Broadway. Like he gets basketball. He understands basketball. I would hope so since he's a basketball head coach. But what his best attribute is tailoring his playbook, tailoring his system to the talent around him rather than, all right, we're going to force the players to fit into my system. He's saying, I'm going to develop a system so that we can get the most out of you guys. And in this case, it's not that slow ball, who can get to 55 first.
Yeah.
Really boring type of basketball like it was last year because those were the guys that were best suited for that. They were better defenders and they were just better in terms of physicality and they had size when they had a guy like John Harrah. But in the case of this year, they're faster, they're quicker. They're not as good on defense, unfortunately, but they're much better on offense. They're one of the highest rated offensive teams, not necessarily the most efficient, but they're a team that can score 90 in a night. They can even score 100 if you really ask them to. So that's what I like about Micah Shrewsbury the most. I'm sold on him. I'd like him to be here for 20 to 25 years, but we'll see.
It's a long time. We don't normally see coaches that stick around for that long.
Yeah.
But he knows, and that his time period there so far will help the younger players in getting them to stick around and stay at Penn State longer with so many players at every sport in college entering the transfer portal. How do you think he's impacted? Last thing for you. How do you think he's impacted the young players at Penn State, and what do you expect them to do and to play? How do you expect them to play when Penn State and the Buckeyes play on the basketball court?
As far as the young guys go, I mean, that's still kind of a work in progress. They're not going to make the same impact this year. And he's targeting guys that he wants to be in the program for 2, 3, 4 years. He'd like to get the one and dones. He's targeted them. But at the end of the day, he does want guys that intend to build this program with him and will leave an impact over the course of multiple years. And so those guys, they've definitely gone through a learning curve because this is the oldest team in college basketball right now. So even though it's not this year that we're going to see guys like Kevin Jai and Evan Mahaffey and Kanye Clary, who have seen significant minutes for where they are at in terms of their career progress in their college career. But it's going to be baptism by fire next year. And I think they'll be able to handle it with what they've done thus far in 2022-23.
I'm looking forward to this game. I know it's important for both teams to play well, and both teams can build confidence. The Buckeyes, 4 games left. I've said it numerous times and Locked On Now, Zach, and also via shows when I talk basketball on Locked On Buckeyes. I don't expect the Buckeyes to win another game this season. They have showed me enough to where they do not play well. Their chemistry is poor, and they don't really play above any certain level. They are who they are. And I still think, I know Penn State is a certain level of an opponent. I don't have faith They have 3 home games. 3 of the 4 final games are played in Columbus. That doesn't sway my decision. This team should lose the game based off how they played. Penn State comes in, they can build confidence down the stretch and really build confidence for Micah Shrewsbury and the recruits coming into Penn State saying, oh, they're building confidence. Year 2 under Micah Shrewsbury was better than year 1. And the recruits could say Penn State is the right place for them. So different stories for both schools.
Yeah.
And I know we didn't ask for a prediction, but I don't expect the Buckeyes to win.
Oh, man. I'm back and forth on this because everything you've told me is like, okay, this is great news because Penn State needs this win. It's a quad 1 win. So far, they're 2-5 against quad 1 teams.
How is this a quad 1 win?
Top 75 team according to the net. According to the net, Ohio State is a top 75 team, and this is a road game. So
yeah, true.
It fits in. So Penn State really needs this game. If they lose this one, they have 3 more opportunities, but then that is every game becomes a must win. So I just don't like the scenario where Penn State has so much to lose because if they don't win this game, that's probably the ugliest of the potential losses remaining on the schedule. So, and I just like, especially in college athletics, Jay, I like teams that have nothing to play for and they can play spoiler. It's because they're still kids at heart. You know, and it shows up in the pros too, but I will continually say this. It's those teams that can be the bull in the china shop, shake things up, and Penn State's got to carry that glass can around, whatever have you, that metaphor that I want to build. They're carrying it. And so they're going to play timid. And I don't know. I think Ohio, and there's still that, you know, even though Ohio State, Penn State, they're not really rivals, but I mean, I look forward to this series just about in any sport when it comes to these 2 schools. So, and Penn State's not good on the road. So I don't know that I like the Nittany Lions in this case either. Both teams will lose. How about that?
Yeah. How about that?
I feel better. If this was a home game, I would feel so much better, but I just feel nervous. I feel like the Nittany Lions are going to come out just a little. I hope they can build on the winning streak, but they had Illinois' number. Minnesota was a quad 4 win because how bad they are.
Yeah.
And I don't, Penn State just, Ohio State's very athletic, even though Zed Key not being out there is a difference maker for me though. I think it's going to come down to a basket or so. And it's just who makes that final basket there. So, but I do like a lot of points in this game. I could see something like an 80-77.
Yeah. The shootout and the higher scoring is going to be probably still in Penn State. Sorry, I'm so down on this basketball team.
Good.
I know the talent. I know the athleticism. I know all of that stuff, and it's definitely there. I am so down on what I have seen this year. If you take Brice Sensabaugh off, this team's bad. Like really, really bad. Okay. And it's not so much like the roster construction. It's just they never really built chemistry in Big Ten play and lost all confidence. So, yeah, even if it's a high-scoring game, low-scoring, in the middle, Buckeyes lose, man.
Okay. All right. I will take your word for it, Jay. It's always great to catch up. Anytime we can, you know, we don't have that many opportunities to do crossovers. So unless we start doing like baseball or something, but it's great to talk to you again and excited to connect for football because that game will be very meaningful when the fall rolls around.
I cannot wait. Both teams will have new starting quarterbacks.
Yep.
Both teams playing for a lot. Penn State trying to win the Big Ten East and play in the conference championship game. Ohio State trying to play in the Big Ten conference championship game for the first time, I believe, since 2020. There's a lot on the line in that game. Buddy, I can't wait.
Yeah. It'll be a long time waiting, but can't wait to connect with you that time. Jay, thanks for your time again, as always. It was great to cross it over here.
Always fun, Zach. I appreciated it.